from the company back office area. Nina's going to go over Kronos with us, and then I'm going to do some career progression guide. We're just going to talk through a little bit, do a little exercise on how we want to do self-nominations, mostly how we want our people to do self-nominations, and make sure that once that comes out, we can help our people get through that process. So without further ado,
okay.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Phelps.
Okay, good. Thanks, Troy. Who else is out in the virtual land?
He just kicked us live, so I wanted to see who is online.
Can we hear from people? Can they just?
They'll IO chat on the YouTube, but we don't have them live on the phone.
Okay. I'll be right back in a second. Sorry. Okay, so any idea, is anybody chatting in? Who else is out there?
Not yet.
Okay, it's all right. I assume there's 2 or 3 people out there listening in or more. I don't have anything really prepared concrete, and I think that's part of the issue with this group. This is our next round of leaders. We're going through the turn right now, the fiscal year turn, with a lot of government contracts. There's a lot of moving parts in place with a lot of people moving around. And so we've been really heads down the last 2 weeks going through a number of contract change issues, moving people around to different contracts. One of the biggest issues that we have is getting the information that's now shared at the headquarters level out to the rest of the community, the other managers. There still is an essence of a lot of expatriates out there operating in their own silo and their own tribe, not really knowing what's happening with the firm writ large. From a contract perspective, we are spending a lot of time in our transition planning for EADE2, the Enterprise Architecture Contract. That contract in particular has the possibility of doubling the size of the firm. Right now, we've got Julie Moore, who's our lead transition manager, helping us to understand what did we put into the proposal. What are the requirements, the staffing requirements? What are the tasks? How does that drive our talent acquisition strategy for the next 3 to 4 or 5 months? How are we promoting our requirements through different venues? This is a heavy lift when you think about doubling the size of the firm, and it goes across all capability areas. And in reality, because of the type of contract this is, we have to look at this particular contract from 4 dimensions. The first dimension is the as-is contract, the people, where they're located. I mean, there's, what's the total footprint right now of EADE?
The total?
Yeah.
Somewhere like 115 to
120 people, right? And so the teams have changed where they're going to be located. We have off-site facilities, we have government facilities. Our proposal requires us to look at the as-is, the to-be baseline. A third dimension is the additional requirements, because we bid this low. We were given lower level labor category requirements without the appropriate experience, so that we know that we have to be able to plus up to actually deliver in context with the proposal that we offered. And the fourth dimension is, in a budget reduced environment, how do we mitigate if we're not going in with the full team because it's IDIQ? We have to think through the scenarios. So we're going through a very deliberate process to look at all 4 of those scenarios for this big ass contract. And it's going to require a lot of communication across our portfolio of skills, knowledge, other people that might be interested in coming to our firm to support this. At some point in time, probably in about 6 weeks, this group right here will be getting a briefing about EADE 2, the requirements, the people, the timeline, and we'll address this from concentric circles. Who's the core team that we need to find? We know that we have a deficit in data engineers, for example. Who's the core team? Who are going to be the task leads? How do we start to shift our internal staff to this prime contract? And so there's a lot of dominoes. We're going to start pulling people from out in the field into EADE, some of them. We had to backfill all those positions. We've done this several times. We've done it with GDSS. But at this scale, it's going to require a lot of clear communication about the individuals and having a very clear pipeline to bring all those folks on. So we're doing a lot of heads down planning right now with the core team. We'll get the partners up to date in about 3 weeks. And then in about 6 weeks, we'll put out some more information, probably in this forum and the other COP forum, so there's good communication about what's happening. On TGIS, we end our TGIS effort on Monday. So we got a couple of folks, Jeff Carter coming off, he's gonna go to the cloud team. We started a new effort, we started a new contract on Teams, which is the former ETA, SDDC. We have a couple of guys. We've hired on a new person and we're bringing one person over there. We have a lot of awards that are outstanding. GDSS, SITES, which is an SDDC program. We have other couple, we have iCodes where we're gonna potentially place up to 12 folks out in California. Mike Berkeley and crew are going out there to do some recruiting next week. We've got one person here currently on our staff that's going to go out there and take on one of those roles. I say all that, there is a lot of activity, and we've got to be able to communicate better with everybody in the field, all the program leads, all the managers, about what's happening. And I'm trying to figure out the right mechanism to do that. We'll need more people in this particular COP to participate in this COP. I'm just saying it's a need. And there's other topics that we're talking about here where in terms of bringing on Kronos. What are we doing? What are the processes? What are the timelines? And Nina will talk about one of those in terms of our review process. The other thing that's coming up, I mean, when we think over the horizon, over the next year, we've got JDPAC, which is going to be in recompete. We've got TDPI, which is going to be in recompete. Is there another major recompete out there? Those are two big ones, all right? Let me go back to EADE just for a second. Because this is such a big contract, we're anticipating, even if there were an announcement of the award, we're anticipating a protest. So this has an implications for our timelines. It also has implications for the facility requirements that we need and that we're investigating. All right. In terms of our OKRs, our third quarter OKRs basically were completing our talent development process, and a lot of that had to do with our career guide. We've published that. We're at the 99th percentile, and we started to socialize that. And it's important that this group has a very clear understanding of how we're going to socialize that. And again, we're probably going to use some concentric circles. This group is the first line of effort to understand how do we apply the career guide? How do people fit? There's a nomination form, a self-nomination form that's in draft that we're refining. That nomination form is a mechanism for a good dialogue. This is a team, it's a team problem where the COP leads need to be involved in the dialogue. The program leads need to be involved in the dialogue. But essentially, every team member is responsible for helping to craft their own roadmap and getting dialogue and input from other folks who can provide some guidance. There's a primary role, and for our client-facing folks, a primary role, a secondary role, and other things to consider. Right. But there has to be some rationale. Why are you fitting in this particular client-facing role? And it needs to be aligned to the definitions in the career guide. So we're going to go through a very deliberate process to socialize this and make sure that people are comfortable with where they fit. Some of our other OKRs include looking at our future facility needs. This has been in a state of flux because we were anticipating a lot of award announcements over the past 30 to 45 days that have been deferred or delayed. So we're holding on that, but we're investigating a lot of opportunities over at Corporate Crossing and other areas to expand our footprint. And also looking at options so that we have the ability to expand with other contract wins rather than going through the very piecemeal process. We win, we expand, we win, we expand. We need to look at this in step changes. We're also looking at facilities down at Cortex. Even we're starting to explore over in West County. Okay. Our commercial and cloud consulting capacities. Overall, Uncommon is leading the way. We get a lot of feedback from the government that our cloud teams that are working on coins, CPA, IGC, ACAS, TGIS, our team is doing very well in terms of understanding the process and the procedures. We just had a big class in here on AWS services. So we continue to develop a very good competency space in this area. Our next round of effort is to build the capacity with the right people. We're looking at bringing on some other data engineers to build out that capacity. And we're going to continue to stack up our demand profile for cloud services, not only in the public sector, but we're reaching out to the commercial sector as well. AWS Advanced Corporate Certification. Right now, we've targeted Jeff Carter to be one of those candidates. We've got to get 2 here in the next few months. And I think we're still working on perhaps a couple other candidates to go through that process. So we're sort of yellow in that space. And our fourth objective for this past quarter was developing a robust onboarding and orientation program. Nina's been working on that. You want to talk a little bit about that, Nina?
Sure. What we're trying to do is streamline some processes as well as flesh out. I know Jason meets with everyone to do an orientation, but this would be an expansion of that. We would have, say, Laura talk from a contracts or QA perspective. We would have other people talk from, Mike would talk from a talent acquisition, Tom and Mike together as FSO or facilities, what have you. But each group, if you will, would spend some time Also, we would talk more about our culture, and, you know, what it means to be an uncommon team member. Just really building it out. It would be, initially, it's gonna be, I think, twice a month. It will be very specific, targeted dates, so that it would be on the calendar so that we could plan in the future, so that the people would know when they needed to be, and, you know, whoever's gonna help. Whoever is helping doesn't necessarily need to be in the orientation all day long. They can come and go in their spot. But we're trying to be more inclusive of our, definitely of our corporate staff people, as well as, you know, anyone that participates. So we want to make sure that our ambassadors have a time to talk. So it's just a little bit, maybe a one-day type orientation, as opposed to a half an hour with me and then an hour with Jason.
Right.
So.
And that speaks to processes writ large. Across all of our capability areas, we're promoting a better understanding of processes and interfaces between the bids, our transition to current operations, contracts, finance, reports. Another thing that'll be happening because we're going over the fiscal year is a complete review of our rating schemes, because people are moving around, and also a complete review of our reporting, our timekeeping reporting process. Who's who in the zoo has timekeeping approval authorities. So a lot of the next few months are going to be focused on integration with Kronos, reports, and integration across those three business areas. One of the other things that's coming up fast and furious is Josh Leishman. We're bringing him on board the middle of October. He's going to be the director for the Applied Technology Center. We don't know what this exactly looks like, but the intent of this center really is to build I would call it a center of excellence, where we're learning how to apply technologies. Josh is very familiar with robotic process automation, for example, AI, machine learning. It's a center of excellence where we can develop a core set of people in the data science space in particular, and we'll expand that out over time. And this capability is something that we can apply to, and resources, to our public sector contracts, and more often into the commercial sector. We are pursuing a really great project in Colorado with regard to opioid litigation. Most of you probably have heard about that litigation. And we're basically going to provide some big data analysis services for that type of a contract. That's still in flux, but that's the type of thing that we'll be doing. Another area in that space, we have a partnership with Lamasoft. They have a suite of tools that we're using in Transcom. Supply Chain Guru 10, which is a supply chain design application. Demand Guru, Data Guru. So we're planning to send a few people up to training in Ann Arbor, really to develop a really good competency in those spaces, and then be able to offer that out in our commercial sector as well. Okay, I've talked too long, I'm sorry. But that's an overview of some of the major drivers in the firm. We continue to prepare for growth and be very proactive. And we're bringing other folks with a lot of institutional knowledge. Julie Moore, when she was with Doherty Business Systems, went through the life cycle of standing up an organization and watching it grow from, what was the numbers, Julie?
There were 32 people when I hired in, and it's over 1,000. So
Okay.
about 1,200 now.
So, and Thomas is bringing in his experience from Boeing and Tapestry, John Williams. So we are continually injecting best processes and ways to improve our communication. And this group right here, along with our manager training, that's the other thing I want to talk about. We're going to do sort of a wholesale review and reconciliation of our curriculum for this community of practice. Try to really understand, where are we going? What are our priorities? What are the topics? How do we develop a really good curriculum that's exciting to you, to everybody that's out in the field, and preparing to shift some people around to different assignments over the next 12, 18 to 24 months. This group right here. And making sure that we are all on tap with what's happening in Kronos, what's happening with Uninet, what's happening with the big contract and the transition. This group of people, plus whoever is out there virtually, we've got to be on common ground in terms of situational awareness, requirements, limitations, capacity, and the way that we're thinking about this. Many of our best ideas to solve some gnarly problems come from the field, or come from, I know a guy or a gal that can help us with this piece part of the problem. One more thing. You got to be careful about letting me get up here and wave my arms around. So we really had a great recruiting event at Gateway Classic Cars earlier this week. Our team came together with a good plan, executed, and I think it was another exhibit to display the culture of our firm, and that we prioritize people and we care about people, and we want them to really understand who we are and how we tick. And it creates a really good sort of sense of gravity for why people are attracted to come and work with us. So I really appreciate what that team did. We're going to continue to evolve with this team, Burke and his team, to reach out even further to the academic community, to other community services. But again, a lot of the folks that we've met and hired over the past 3 years are through the networks of the people that we know out in the field. So I really appreciate that effort, and we're gonna need more participation in those sort of recruiting events as we look out over the future. And it's going to be tightly coupled with what Cal is doing in the marketing space as well. Bless you. Okay, any questions for me?
We didn't talk much about the commercial. What's going on in that area?
Okay, good question. So right now we still have a contingent out at Nortec, the HVAC. We're still doing some ERP implementation. We've got Janice and Jason continuing to work that project. There's some additional work out in Oklahoma. We're going back and forth. There's some other opportunities there just in terms of barcode implementation that we're looking at. And we're also looking at the possibility of some cloud migration services. And John Williams is doing a great job, and that team, promoting the value of our services. So we went in there to do an IT project, but it really was a business transformation project. Julie was on that project, and a lot of this is really understanding how can the IT be an enabler, how are roles and responsibilities changing, and that's really 70% of the work is getting people to understand how to apply it, to train them, prepare them, and to elevate productivity. Out at Woodard, we're still providing CIO support services, a restoration service. We have 2 people out there. Wayne and Christy are doing some really terrific work with BPMN, with Visio. A lot of as-is, to-be, process design. That's another area where I'd like to get a little bit more exposure. I know that Wayne has done some training, but that's really good work in an area for us to develop some more competencies in BPM. What does right look like, and how do you translate it? How do you color code it? We have a number of other initiatives that are out there that John is pursuing in the commercial sector, but we will see over the course of the next 12 to 18 months a greater degree of emphasis in identifying commercial projects and then being prepared to staff those. So the other thing that's happening, Bill, is where we have a long time horizon to fill staff for the government sector jobs, we've got to build a commercial bench of people that are ready to roll. And in some cases, we've got to be able to identify the folks that are comfortable moving from public sector to commercial sector and manage all those timelines. So a lot of movement in that commercial space. The other thing that I'd mention is we recognize that we're fairly saturated here at Scott Air Force Base. So will be another very deliberate push to look at opportunities in Washington, D.C., Austin, Colorado, and very specific geographic opportunities in those 3 geographic areas. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Sorry I took up so much time.
That's okay. Yeah, nothing about it really. So next up, we're going to talk about Kronos a little bit. And what's going on with that?
Has everyone in here logged into Kronos? So we can skip to the next. We can go on to the next.
Just so you know, Nina, we've got currently Amy, Chuck, Lance, and 4 others that are on.
Oh, okay. So hopefully all of them have logged in as well. If you haven't logged in and you're having any problems, please let me know. When we sent out the initial login, there was some issue and most people got locked out as soon as they tried to log in. So it's pretty simple fix for me to go in there and fix it, but it does take an extra step. So the easiest way you can do it now, if you have not logged in, for those people in the virtual world, is to just click on forgot password and go through that way. So, I hope everyone, once they logged in, they went ahead and clicked on the myself icon, which is like the one person. That will lead you to a menu of things that you can go into. Let's go ahead, but yeah. I put this in Friday Frivolities, but Kronos does have a workforce-ready app. It works pretty good. I've got it on my phone, especially like for notifications. If I'm out of the office, then I can take care of things like unlocking people or whatever. So one thing you have to have is our short name, which it was pointed out to me that this short name is actually longer than our name, has more letters than our own name, but you know, that's what they call it, so that's what we'll go with. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So Kronos has built in, this is the menu when you click on your myself icon. It has a lot of different things. So your my information is where you'll go to verify your own information. Right, we don't use time and attendance, so everyone probably has my time, but that we do not use time and attendance, so it won't go anywhere. My benefits is another section we'll talk about in a minute. My HR, my career, and my learning is what I wanted to talk to you about. So if you click on my learning, I clicked on the employee one. You go into product training, and it brings up a list of things that you can go into. So if you're not sure what you have access to, or if you want to change the look of your dashboard or whatever when you come into it, there are all kinds of tools in here and learning modules that you can click on that will either have videos or how-tos. So I've had some people came back to me already and said that they've already done that without, they just kind of clicked around in there. Don't be afraid to click around. You're not going to hurt anything. You're not going to get locked out because you tried to access something one too many times. If you don't have access, it won't let you go to the next level. So don't be afraid to just get in there and click around. But there is a lot of learning tools that are built in there, or self-help guides, so feel free to do that. A lot of people in this team are people managers. So I have not sent out the people manager accesses yet. I want to make sure we get a couple more workflows built out. Once we have that, I'm going to be giving you all manager access, so you'll be able to see your team and everything involved with that. But one thing I really would like to do with that is make sure that we have the training that goes along with that. There's a little bit more to the manager level, so I would want you to have the training to go along with that. So, okay, next slide. So a neat thing with Kronos is that if you want to see what job opportunities are out there that we have posted. You go in through Kronos, you obviously can go through our website, but you can go right into Kronos, click on My Career, and there is something called Search for Jobs. It will bring you to all of our open positions, and you can apply within Kronos if you are interested as an internal candidate to apply for any of our jobs. So if there's something that you're like, well, I'm wondering what they've got going on at corporate that, that I might want to make a job change or something like that, all of our jobs are posted, and you can apply within Kronos. And you can also go out and take a look and see what the requirements are. It's full transparency. It matches our website online. But as an employee, for an internal applicant, you'll want to go in this way. So, yeah.
Are we going to manage our corporate resumes through this tool too?
Maybe. We are not at that. We're not ready for that yet. But it would make sense that we would do that. We have... There's a field called My Documents, so we can upload anything in there. So we could manage it, but we haven't even talked about that. We're really interested in managing the skills, certifications, all of that. One thing we're looking at is the ability to list whether you have a security clearance in there or not. Things like that can be pulled out in a report. We'll be listing like the role, the primary role, secondary role, like just what Jim talked about. The community of practice, I'm building that out now. So that's really more where we're going, but that might be something in the future, Randy. We just haven't done that. The other area in My Career is performance. I'm just going to talk on this very briefly. The performance, we have as a new hire, you guys probably all remember this. Well, not all of you, because Rachel hasn't been here full 2 weeks yet. Well, today's probably a full 2 weeks, right? Monday, yeah. So at 14 days, we kick out what's called a 14-day check-in. At 30 days, we do a check-in. At 60 days, we do a check-in. So those are the initial ones that were set up, and we have tested those, and the system, that part works. So we're finishing setting up the rest of the performance review process. The goal is that we're going to be probably going to a quarterly ongoing performance review as opposed to an annual review. But part of that process is us getting the annual reviews completed, which were not completed before we switched systems. So we're working through that process. We're sending out, I have been sending out Word documents to capture those people that were in the August and September area that did not get their annual performance reviews. So working through that, I have sent out, I think Troy got 7 or 8 of them. He did. So what we've been doing is it's a very scaled down. Basically, your for the people that have been here for a while that have done an annual review, it was very long. It was a lot of people would get locked out of Silk Road, then they'd lose everything. So we had this ongoing issue all the time. But the Word doc just basically describes the job description and the main 3 descriptive characteristics, I guess you'd say, of that position. And then the employee fills out their self-review, and then the manager gets a form and does the same thing and then combines them, and then it comes back. So we're still trying to keep that process moving, but we know that we're going to have a group of people that are in an interim process. So, okay, next.
If you don't mind, Troy, so you've received some of these
Yes, sir.
PDFs. From your perspective, as an evaluator, just tell me about your perspective in terms of getting these completed and getting caught up in our queue and finishing out the 4th quarter.
Sure. So the forms that Nina sent were very similar to the old forms. So I'd already had most of them pre-written, just knowing they were coming. As far as getting it turned around, it's just a Word document. The members filling out their side of it, I'm doing mine, and we're forwarding back to Nina with the compensation form that we've used all the time.
Okay.
So it's It's actually a little bit easier than it was in SoPro just because I'm getting both forms and I'm able to forward them forward and not have to wait on the review piece.
Okay, so essentially we're following the same process, it's a little bit limited, we're just doing this, completing this in a Word document.
Correct.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So, from my perspective, it's important that we finish up these reviews, try to get back on track, and then finish them up as we prepare for 2020.
Right.
So, I'll be putting a little bit more eyes on target on finishing these up and looking at the queues, and I'll be pressing down through Thomas and everybody to make sure that we finish these up. We have an obligation to make sure that all of our folks have an understanding of where they sit. It's important to all of us to make sure that we get this done.
The ones that Troy had were not started and then not completed. The ones that were started and not completed are a problem. Those are a little bit more difficult because we have one piece done, but we have no way to finish it. So those are going to be a little bit more problematic. I don't want the employee to have to redo anything, so we're working through that piece. But Troy's were both, the process was, I sent an email to the team, I sent an email to the team member, I copied Troy on it, said this is your self-review, please complete it, forward it to Troy. Then I sent an email separately to Troy, said here's your portion, me and Thomas. So it's still working, it's still the same process, we're just doing it on paper. So, but we will finish up August and September. Like I said, the push is going to be on the ones that had a partial one done that it never got done by their manager. So, and I'm pretty sure we were able to download all of those. So what could happen is we could possibly just send that downloaded form, the partially completed, to the manager, and then we'll figure out. There's a little bit more complicated, but we'll get it. So, all right, next slide.
When does the process kick off before review? How far in advance?
So in Kronos, it's going to be automatic. So I'm not exactly 100% sure on how much lead time we have, but it'll be based on their anniversary or their full-time or seniority date in Kronos. So it will kick off automatically. It won't be me having to manually send a bunch of stuff. It'll go to the employee as a notification that they need to complete their part, and then it'll come to you or the manager. Yeah. My benefits, I just kind of put this up here just so you could see. Probably in late November, early December, we will be doing open enrollment through Kronos. We will not be doing paper forms where you check off and send to Nina. It will all be done through Kronos. So your benefit plans should be currently loaded in Kronos. So I encourage you to look at that and make sure things are right. That we have Social Security numbers correct for your spouse or your children or yourself. You know, those are all things that you need to look at and make sure that they're good. Because eventually, it's not all the way set up now, but it'll be a live feed to Lincoln National for life insurance or whatever, to IMED and to vision, to the vision, well, that is the vision, but the dentist, the dental insurance and the medical insurance. So we're working on setting that up. It's a very long process to do that because it requires a lot of coordination, but eventually it will be a live feed, so we won't even, right now we have a broker that does it manually. So, like I said, I encourage you all to look at this. The other thing to note, which I didn't point this out earlier, was there is a place that says employee contribution, and there's also our company contribution. So you can see the extra cost that is there that the employer, that Uncommon pays for you. So, all right, next slide. I think that might be it. Yep. Any other questions?
So I have one.
Okay.
You mentioned that we needed some manager training for the manager section.
Mm-hmm.
Are you planning on doing that in the next COP meeting here, or would you do a virtual Teams meeting? Just to get it a
I
little bit more
don't know
personal?
that I want to wait a month to do
Okay.
that. I think it will be sometime in mid-October, and I've got to coordinate schedules and everything. I hope it's not another month. I would like to do it before. I know it won't be as early as next week, but maybe the week after that or early the following week. So I could do a Teams. It would probably be fine to do a Teams meeting because I would want everyone to be on their computers to have their access up so that they could look through and it's one thing to look at a picture, it's another to be in your computer or on your computer and look at the things that are that we're looking at. So
I think there's currently a Teams issue on base still that they're trying to work through again.
yeah,
So Transcom's having problems.
Transcom.
I really figured for the most part we would have people come in here so that if you had specific questions, we could look at it right then and there. But if that doesn't work out for everybody, I'm flexible, you know. Yeah,
Do it in here, but have a Teams backup.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. So,
Question and answer section, right?
yeah, you got some questions?
Tell me more about Kronos.
So Mike can tell you all about talent acquisition. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We are going to dive into the career progression guide next. Give me 2 seconds to get mic'd up here. How many people in the room have seen the career progression guide as it was in draft form? I know you have. Bill, have you seen it a little bit?
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh, yeah. Nina has.
Tina, have you seen it?
I've seen it, all
So-
135 pages of
I
it.
saw it, I didn't get to read it. I saw it.
Right. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, I'm going to get my mouse here so I can click this and hopefully it'll work. I hate standing in the middle because it's, of course. Did I lose my show? Sorry, everybody. Where'd my slide go, Nina?
I swear I didn't touch it.
I swear I had a. So the handouts that we have on the table, I'm going to bring it up on the screen at the same time. I'm just waiting on it to load. So for those of you online and those of you at the tables here, I did some printouts of the matrix. And then for those of you online, it's in the slideshow. If you double click on the slide to the right, you should be able to open up the PowerPoint that has the matrix on it. Zoom in on this a little bit so we can talk about it. If you could, it's just so small up here. I was hoping to get it. We might just dim the lights too. Hey, Chris, could you dim the lights for me?
I could.
Thank you, sir. It might help a little bit, just so we can see what's going on. All right. Okay. So for those of you that haven't seen The Matrix, and like I said, I think everybody in the room has, but I'm not sure about online who has seen it and who hasn't seen it. What we've done is we've kind of broken out into the 4 separate COPs or the 4 separate disciplines. So we got the Agile Solution Development, Business Architecture, Data Science, System Engineering. For our COP, we have a single row that comes up, and it's the project coordinator, project manager, senior project manager, and program manager are our 5 levels within our COP. The other COPs have 3 silos at the lower half, and they split out into different disciplines. And then as they get up into the top tiers, they kind of consolidate into more leadership roles. And so they have to be aware of what's going on underneath the entire breadth of what they're doing. So To become a senior business architect, for example, you're probably coming up out of one of the 3 tiers, but you have to be aware of the other 2 and know how they work. For our COP, we're a little bit different in the fact that we really aren't going to be growing people through this chain to get up into the top tiers. They're probably going to be coming off of these other COPs. So somebody will come up through the business architect realm or a system engineering realm, and they come to that Y in their career when they're at the point of, do I want to go into management or do I want to become, a senior developer, fellow type principal in my own discipline? If they decide to come over to the Agile Solution Development COP, what'll happen is we'll start getting them into the management roles, teaching them the management things, and bring them over into ours. There will be individuals that are in these other COPs that will be coming over into our COP meetings to get the manager training and to see the things that we're doing at the management levels, because they are also program and project managers, but they may also be enterprise business architect. One of the other big things about the matrix is you don't only fit into one block. You may fit into 2 or 3 or 4 of these blocks. And so you're going to have a primary role, a client-facing role that you're in, but you may also qualify as some of these other ones. So you may be a business analyst, but you got some data engineering skills in the background. You've just kind of moved around in the company. What we're trying to capture with this is that the way they've explained it is you kind of build a bench. So everyone has these roles that we've built out for them. If we have a position come up on a new contract and we need an operations analyst 3, we know exactly who falls into that realm from the company so that we can see who's in there. It makes it easier to pull from. It makes it easier to give individuals coming up through here a clear guide on where they're going to go and the skill sets they need to get there. Any extensions on that? Nina, I know this is kind of your...
No, I think that's pretty accurate assessment. Yeah, we just want to be able to show a clear path of what it takes to get to the next level, and also if you want to slide, like you said, to a different level or a different lane, if you will, that you understand what's involved in that, and really allows you to drive your own career path. And to have the support of Uncommon alongside of you and behind you, and helping you along the way. So
one of the other things is these are not necessarily tied to your job description and or to your title in the company. So you may be a senior consultant, you may be at a certain senior level, but your current client-facing role happens to be a BA2 because we have an open contract that has a billet that needs to be filled. And so, we would expect people to be able to go down into other lanes that can backfill down to make sure that we're completing the contracts as needed. And so you may be in a position where, you're a, cyber engineer 2 position, but really you're a senior systems engineer. Like you're qualified to be a senior engineer, but we just happen to have an engineer 2 position open in a client-facing role that you're going to fill for now. So don't be offended if you feel low, or if you're filling a lower billet than necessarily what's on here. These are just client-facing roles. So it's more of what's in the contract, less about you and more about what we need for the contract. Would you agree with that, Nina?
I do.
Okay. And so this is all new to the company. So we've had a ton of meetings about this, and we're all learning as we go. So the reason I keep asking Nina is I want to make sure that we're all still saying the same things. I want to make sure we're coming with a unified front and that we're being clear in what we're asking for from people. One of the things we're going to ask the members of the entire company is to do a self-nomination. And so we're going to have a self-nomination form. Jim talked about it a little bit. What they're going to do is they're going to go through this nomination form with the white papers that go with each one of these positions. Those white papers describe exactly what it takes to be one of these positions. They're going to go through, highlight, markup, figure out whatever we end up doing for the program that does this to pick their position to self-nominate. At that point, their managers and the COP leads and some other people, however that team comes together to validate, is going to go through and validate the nominations. Once we do that, we'll get people put into the queue where they belong. We'll inform the members, let them know, hey, this is the queue you're in, this is what we're looking for out of you. Go over with them a development plan for them to grow in the future. So that's kind of the big picture of where this is going.
The other, an add-on to that is we'll also level set how you move up to another role. You know, there'll be a process for that. Once we do this initial assessment, if you will, then the next level will be how do you move up to the next level, or what process do you go through to get to the next level?
And some of those processes that have been kicked around in the past, as we've moved up roles, it's been kind of a manager suggestion, and then the partners buy off on it. We're trying to get into something that's a little bit more process driven and deliberate, team of teams. And so as we get, as you kind of move through these, it's almost time-based, knowledge-based. You can get up through the first 3 of most of these categories. As we get up into the systems, you know, the seniors and the enterprise level information, there's going to be some type of board involved in that where the member is going to come in and talk to the partners or talk to the cop leads or talk to senior managers in the company. We're trying to figure out the rest of that process. But there's going to be something more to it than just, you're a guy now. We're going to bring them in, make sure that they're going to represent the company in a way that's in line with company values and that they meet the needs of these positions. Because these are extremely critical. They're client-facing roles that are critical to the company and growing the business. Any questions on that?
I just had a question.
Sure.
It might be relevant. That's what I was just asking. And we're developing our application and our position in Kronos right now. So as we're talking to people like as Wednesday, and we're wanting to identify and the jobs that are listed, is this something where we're going to have a copy listed for us to see and explain to them, okay, well, this position will be open in business architects, or do you see what I'm asking?
So,
They're trying to self-identify before they're even working for us. They want to understand how to take the jobs within those spaces.
right, so most of these jobs or any individual requisition to any contract anywhere will probably be advertised more along the lines of the specific labor category. But we're gonna get into a process of that, on that same job post, it will have our cop identified on it already. Now, once we hire that person and they're onboarded and they get a little more indoctrinated, because nobody outside of Uncommon knows this real in depth. But once they understand it more, if they feel like they identify with a different community practice or just have a natural interest in another one, they're welcome to be included into it. But for the sake of our oversight on that, that's what we're gonna see, is you're gonna have the regular labor category advertised, typically, unless we gotta edit it a little bit to be more appealing or make sense. There'll also be a cop identified on that job post too, so if they're looking at our website, they can go, they're talking about that, I see it there, oh, I guess this matches up with that.
Okay.
That's kind of what's going on.
So for now, do you want us to pitch the cop piece of it, or just the actual requisition?
Both.
Okay, that's what we were doing on Wednesday.
Yeah. So, and one of the huge selling points on Wednesday, everyone that sat down with me, I talked to them about communities of practice and how we work. And not just for the solution agilists, but how the other communities of practice work. And it was a huge selling point. Everybody was very, entrenched in that. They were just like, wow, that's an amazing thing that you guys are trying to do and that you're doing. And so, yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I think it's important that we start pushing it as early as we can, because I do think it's a huge selling point for the company.
I think by default, Nina and I did that at the check-in.
Mhm.
We were trying to figure out where to go.
Right.
And then we were describing and having them try to relate to the packets that we had and take a minute and think what does it mean to them to be in one of those areas. So, yeah, that was definitely, I wasn't sure if you've done that before. We just started doing that. And so,
I think we needed to just stay at the top level or the cop level, if you will, and not go down into each lane. Right.
Sure.
Yeah, we need to stay at the maybe
Yes.
4 cop levels.
right, and it's too confusing otherwise, I think, but.
Yes,
Sure.
yes.
Yeah, because it gets in depth quick.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, Nina. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you, sir. So we're getting people to leave early, which is fine. We'd set a 1 o'clock and Jim took up all our time, so I blame Jim. Anyway.
But it's just all good stuff. Very
Right. So the big thing, the other thing we were going to try to do today was a self-nomination thing, but with the people that are left, I think we've all we know where we live. My biggest thing is making sure as we go through these, understanding how to help the people that work for us. Because as managers, when we get into these junior roles, making sure as we push this out that we're there available for our people that are working for us to make sure that they can get through this and understand what the COPs are about and what we're doing with the COPs. So for me, that's a big push. Any other questions on the matrix before I flip the page? No? Okay.
Question, what's kind of the timeline for the self-nomination?
That's a great question. I have no answer. They are working on an automated system to do it. So they're currently working, I think the developers den is doing it. They're working on something to ask the questions, and it will, if you're in the engineering COP, I believe it's going to give you the options as you pick what level you're at. It's just going to self-build. Yeah. Nina was telling me hopefully in 2 weeks we'll have that out. So hopefully by October-ish we'll be able to really floor this and get it level set with everyone. Those dates are arbitrary to me that I just made up. So take that for what it's worth. Troy made up dates. They happened. Any other questions on that one? Okay. One other quick thing, I'm sorry. For the Agile Solution Development COP, because we're rolling the manager training into this COP, we are looking at the bottom couple of tiers of this. These people will also have a separate COP that they belong to. So for instance, on GDSS, I have some business analyst people that are functionals. Their primary, if they're not a manager or an associate manager, they'll fall into the business analyst function over with the business architects COP. Part of that is just so that they're getting that training they need to grow up to the next level and make sure they're getting that individualized training, and that this COP can concentrate more on the manager training. And so we're going to concentrate a lot more in this room on management training and doing those things that the managers need to do to take care of everyone. Just because as we grow and we get more managers, that's going to be a more in-depth training and a curriculum. And so we want to make sure that we're not having some of these junior level manager people that are going to be managers eventually, but we don't want to overflow them with information when they really need to be concentrating on, you know, being a business analyst or being a financial analyst, and they need to get those skill sets built. So just par for the course for everyone there. And I've contacted most of the involved people. There's not very many of them. I think we have 3 or 4 that are affected, and they've been contacted already. And more in-depth conversations will be had with them just as we push this out to find out where they land. So I'm just going to show an example of one of these. So we'll just pull up a senior project manager. You can see here on the white paper, and again, these have been passed out. It just goes through a description, and it's similar to the development guide we have currently. It goes through a description of the items that you need to have to be a senior project manager. As you go through these with your people, as you look through it for yourself, understand that any role that's above the very bottom role, it's everything underneath that plus the next level up. And so you have to build, it's a pyramid build. So you're building all of the things underneath. You have to be able to accomplish everything below it. So if you can, does that make sense? That you're building up to the top here? So it'll be all of those bullet statements. But there's white papers on every position on that matrix. And so they have this listed out for every position. So we can go through and make sure that people get into the right area for them. Any questions on that? This document is like, how big was it? 400 pages? Is that what you said?
Not quite, I think it's about 140 pages.
I think it is 140 is what she said. So it's in depth. The plan is when we send this out to everyone, we'll break it into sections. And so for our COP, there's a 16-page section for the solution agilists. So I'm not going to send everybody 150 pages because it's too much. And so we'll break it down and give it into a bite-sized chunk that you can read that only pertains to you. If you want to see the big one, you can go out on Dropbox and pull up the big one and do the big reference if that's what you want to do with your life. So if you want to read all of that stuff. Yeah, it's exciting. I think that's about all I wanted to touch on. The big thing is that matrix, and then just making sure that we understand how that works. Let me see if I have any questions from online before I wrap this up. So the only thing I have online is Lance needs a copy of the slides, so I'll send them over. As soon as we're done here. So without any, if nobody else has any questions, we'll wrap this thing up. Next month, we're looking at, obviously Jim or Jason, one of the two will come in and talk to us again. We're going to go a little bit more in depth into Kronos and into the timekeeping piece of that. And then there's one other topic that Troy can't remember right now. So you'll see an email shortly. And for the planning committee, we'll do another breakfast this month. I think we'll sit down because we need to do 3 months out. So we'll sit down and try to figure that out too. So if nothing else, take some extra nugs because there's a bunch. Chick-fil-A was good to us today. I know. It's, all right.
This is very helpful.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
He probably heard me say that. So.
No, I saw him like walk out.
Who, Jim? He had another meeting to get to. Oh, no, Ben. So are we ready to come out and beat them down next week, Troy?
Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention that. There's only 14 here, so.
Hi, I'm Andrea.
Julie.
Which means we're gonna have to come in and love the challenge.
Troy, thanks. That was really good content. I liked it.
Thank you for coming. How's it going?
It's busy.
Yeah.
Isn't really on the bench. I think I'm floating around a whole bunch of things. I didn't see retiree on there. That's my next step. That's what I aspire to.
That's nice.
So I think
That was delicious. Yes.
well, you know, I thought once upon a time that I might like to retire someday, but I think my retirement plan is just going to have to be I die. So.
No.
Well, it's not on the job. You know,
Well, but if I do it on the job, then my beneficiaries get double. So, you know,
Don't worry.
it just works out well for everybody.